Automakers have been price gouging customers since 2021, and I don't know about you, but I'm tired of it. Now, as we all know, during 2021 and 2022, car prices went up. This was due to pandemic-related production issues and an increase in spending cash, which caused an unprecedented Black Like Swan event in 2021 that led to very few cars being available to buy, and the cars that were available had skyrocketed in price as a result. This encompassed both new and used cars. And the problem is, while used car prices have gone down and continue to go down, new car prices haven't. In fact, new car prices have actually continue to increase, though the rate of that increase has slowed. And as we sit here today, we are in the midst of earnings season, and automaker after automaker and dealership group after dealership group is reporting net income declines in the first quarter, and this is due to things like slowing demand, interest rates going up, car prices going down, incentives increasing, things like that. And while originally I had actually planned to outline Ford's earnings and GM's earnings for this video, but as I had been diving into earnings all week long, I began to feel very frustrated with these earnings reports. Because while it is true that many automakers are showing negative net income year over year, and all things considered, both automakers and dealerships are in a much tougher spot today than they have been in the last few years, the reality is the headlines of missed earnings and declining net income, profit, and revenue, these are just headlines and they really don't paint the full picture. Because sure, many of these automakers and dealership groups are seeing declines compared to 2021, 2022, and 2023 whenever the car market was smoking hot. But how are these automakers and dealership groups faring compared to pre-pandemic in 2019, the period of time before the car market exploded? So let's take a look. In Q1 of 2019, General Motors reported net income of $2.1 billion. They also sold 665,840 units during the same period of time. This year, in Q1 of 2024, GM reported $3 billion in net income. And not only did GM make more in 2024 compared to 2019, they also delivered less cars. Their total deliveries for Q1 in 2024 was 594,233 vehicles. Now, I do recognize that the value of a dollar is different today in 2024 compared to 2019. And so according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a dollar today is worth roughly 81 cents in 2019 currency, which means that $3 billion today is $2.43 billion in 2019. So even adjusted for inflation, GM made more money this past quarter compared to 5 years ago in 2019 for the same quarter. In fact, with inflation taken into account, they made $330 million more and they sold 75,000 less vehicles. And in this most recent earnings report, GM actually beat estimates and expectations, so they actually fared quite well. But let's look at Ford. Ford reported a net income of $1.1 billion in Q1 of 2019, and they sold 590,249 cars in the same quarter. Just this week, Ford reported their Q1 data for 2024, and they reported a $1.3 billion net income, and they sold 508,803 units. Now, adjusted for inflation, $1.3 billion today is equal to about $1.1 billion in 2019, so net income-wise, Ford was pretty much flat. But Ford did sell less vehicles in 2024 compared to 2019. They actually sold 80,000 less cars this quarter compared to the quarter 5 years ago. So while net income was flat, the amount of cars that Ford had to sell to reach that net income was less than it was in 2019, which means that they were making more off of each individual car. Now, Toyota hasn't released their earnings yet for this past quarter, but for 2023 as a whole, Toyota reported a net income of $31.8 billion and they sold 11.2 million vehicles worldwide. In 2019, they sold 6.8 million units worldwide and they reported $18.5 billion in net income. So there was a 64% increase in unit volume sales for Toyota for their worldwide sales. So the amount of cars that they sold worldwide increased by 64%. But the amount of money that they made in net income off of those cars increased by 71%. On top of all of this, Toyota has just released their pricing for their new TRD Pro Tacoma, and this truck is getting an increase in price by an astronomical $17,000 from the previous generation, which was the 2023 model. The new starting price for the TRD Pro Tacoma is $65,395. And sure, people will and are using the fact that this is a new generation in order to justify that price increase, but come on, this is just crazy. When we look at automakers, the majority of them, with the exception of Tesla, are making disproportionately more today than they were back in 2019. So these headlines I've seen one after the other over the last couple of weeks regarding declining revenue, declining net income, disappointing profits, missing estimations and analyst expectations. I'm quite frankly tired of it because while sure, automakers are making less year over year, at least for the most part, but in the majority of cases, they are in fact not making less compared to pre-pandemic numbers, even whenever we take into account inflation. In fact, these companies are well ahead of where they were 5 years ago because many companies are reporting higher net income today than they were in 2019, and the companies that aren't, like Ford for example, while their net income is flat, the amount of cars that they're selling in order to reach that net income is less. So they are again ahead at the end of the day. Because this means that these automakers that are selling less cars but making the same amount of income, they are simply pricing their cars higher. And who's eating that cost? We are. Last month, the FTC released a report about grocery supply chain disruptions, and basically the conclusion of this report was that larger grocers took advantage of pandemic supply chain disruptions and they used a scapegoat of the supply chain to make more profit, which really isn't a surprise, but I wholeheartedly believe that the exact same thing has been happening in the automotive industry as well. Because in today's car market, there is absolutely no scenario where dealership markups are justified. And there is no reasonable explanation for why the price of a truck like the Tacoma TRD Pro would be increased by 36% in 1 year, just because it's a new generation. And while Toyota and the TRD Pro Tacoma is the most recent example of this, it certainly isn't the only example. And in the case of the Tacoma, is what makes this so much worse is that the $65,395 price point, it's only available on one type of TRD Pro, because getting any color other than black is an extra $500. So if you want to get any color other than black, even a basic one like gray or white, your starting price is actually going to be $65,895, which is just ridiculous. And the thing is, while my channel is focused on the automotive industry, and so of course this is a focus and something that I talk about frequently, this is definitely not only affecting the automotive industry either, and I'm sure many people who are watching this video know that. Let's look at some stats. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, while the value of the dollar has decreased by about 19% since 2019, the cost of a new car has increased by 27%. The cost of a 3-year-old car has increased by 41%. And groceries for the average American household has increased by nearly 70%. The point is, we're getting screwed. And it's not because of inflation, it's not because of the pandemic, it's because of large corporations. And while I don't have a clear conclusion or concise statement to end this video with, I ultimately wanted to make this video because I've been covering automakers and dealership earnings for years now. Every time a quarter ends, I wait to hear a report for large automakers and dealership groups like Toyota, Tesla, Ford, GM, CarMax, AutoNation, so that I can report on how these automakers and dealership groups are performing. But I've just become a bit jaded with the fact that all of these automakers are talking about how their net income is sliding without really acknowledging the fact that they are still up way ahead of where they were in 2019, and in a way, this is absolutely taking advantage of the average consumer. And the idea that any of these automakers are underperforming, well, it's just grossly misrepresenting the situation. The silver lining here is that I do think that the market is finally beginning to boil over, and while I don't know that we will see any sort of multi-industry-wide price crash anytime soon, I do think we will see more layoffs. I think companies will continue to see declines in incomes, CEOs' pay will be affected, and maybe then we'll begin to see more of an extreme price decrease in these automakers that have increased their price over the years. I am just tired of automakers and companies in general increasing their pricing under the guise that it's because of an increase in price of goods or materials. Because even in 2024, this is still happening, with Toyota being the best example currently with their TRD Pro. And I think at this point, all of us know it's BS. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.